Welcome to the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi After the Show podcast. We love for you to be a part of things. We hang out a little bit later, so you can send us emails, follow up here. If you're listening on the iHeartRadio app, hit us on the talkback mic. You can always send us a voice memo if you want to, also to murphysamandjodi.com. So many ways to get a hold of us. We'd love to hear from you. Sometimes it's very easy to put off the things that they're not urgent, but they're important. You know what I mean? Things that don't come calling, but I would say it's probably one of the most popular things to be procrastinated. And I'm talking about specifically checkups and things that you need to be doing, medically.
Yeah.
They don't seem urgent, but they are important, even if you don't think that they're, important. That's actually what the book, Stephen Covey's book, The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, that came out in 1992, actually is all about.
Wow.
It's based on something. I'm not going to go down and get complicated, I promise here. Actually, General Eisenhower was the first person to come up with something that he called a decision matrix. That sounds a lot more complicated than it really is.
That sounds actually cooler.
It is.
I mean,
well, and basically it's four quadrants. There are things that are urgent and unimportant, which tend to really hit our lives. That's somebody interrupting you for something that's their priority that's not necessarily yours. It's urgent and unimportant, right? There's urgent and important. Typically, those are pretty obvious.
Family,
they
health,
stand out.
Right.
There's not urgent, not important. There are things that tend to kind of clutter our minds.
I'd like to get some of those.
Yeah,
Right.
Sam likes to send those around too.
Right. Well, but those tend to be the things that we waste our time on.
Yeah.
Or the things that aren't urgent and they're not important. And then finally, there's important but not urgent. And those are the ones that you really have to make an effort to say, okay,
Sure.
I'm scheduling this into my calendar. I'm going to make this happen.
Sure.
And so I'm going to do a treadmill test today.
A stress test.
A stress test, whatever they call it. I don't know if that's an echocardiogram, but it's a stress echo test is what they call it, just to see heart and valves and all that kind of stuff. Now, here's the thing. I'm type 1 diabetic. I don't really have any issues with that. There's cardiac stuff in my family. Had a little scare, I guess, whatever it was, 5 or 6 years ago. You remember that, Jodi? That
Yes,
turned
I
out to
do.
be, fortunately, it was nothing. But I realized, okay, you know what? This is just something I want to stay on top of. I can't see inside of my body to know how things are, and I exercise and all that. But, so it's not urgent. I don't have any symptoms of anything, but it's been a couple of years. I want to get it checked out. Yeah. And the reason I bring that up is because, I think whether it's discomfort or fear, which is very real, when it comes to the doctor, or
A lot of people just don't go.
entrusting the doctor completely and not actually asking questions. I think a doctor or a nurse depends on that from you. It's important to raise your hand, even if the doctor's not recommending it. Now, just so that you know, so my cardiologist, yes, whatever happened actually it was longer than that. It was my mom. The same year my mom passed away is when I had
That would have been 2016.
Yes, that was 8 years ago. And so I wound up with a cardiologist at that point. Cool. And I go see him once a year now because we just want to make sure that everything is fine since we know there's a history in the family. And when I went for my visit in July, he said everything checked out just fine. Cholesterol, perfect, not a problem. Everything sounds great. Everything on my chart, looks fine. They did the little EKG that they usually do in the patient room there, and he said there were a few little things, but nothing serious. Well, I don't like a few little things anyway, right?
Thanks, Doc.
Right.
That's what he hones in on, is the few little what.
But I said, look, I'd like to do another stress echo if we can, do that. And he looked and said, well, your last one was 2 years ago. You did fine on it. I'm like, yeah, but I don't know.
You don't understand.
I want to actually get on and do this again.
It's okay.
I
You're
enjoy
supposed to. We're making fun of you or whatever, picking, but you're supposed to be your own advocate, and there's no wrong way to do that.
Well, and here's why. Without sounding really morbid, here's the reason why. Without the autopsy, they're pretty sure my mom died from what they call the widowmaker, which, by the way, is not many symptoms, not much shows up, and 1 minute you're fine, well, the next minute you're not here.
Yeah.
And I don't, whatever's going to happen to me is going to happen to me. But if it's preventable or it's something I can screen, why wouldn't I just go get it, checked out? For me, for peace of mind. So that's what I'm doing. It's, it's not urgent, but it's important. And so, but I learned an important lesson, I guess the first time I did the stress echo. I wasn't thinking. I never had one. Nobody told me.
Yeah.
I know what this is.
Yeah. I went straight from here
Yeah.
to the doctor's office to get on the treadmill. how was I dressed for that?
For work.
Oh,
For work,
Lord.
in dress shoes, in slacks.
No wonder he's stressed.
And a long, shirt. And I'm like, oh, wow.
Did we forget something?
Yeah, exactly. And they're like, yeah, you can. It's okay. You can, do that made it tough. So I packed my bag today.
Yay.
The workout clothes that I normally take with me, that's what I'm taking to the doctor's office today. So
it's so funny because I think that way. If I'm going to if I'm going to an appointment later that requires a change of clothes, I will have already done that the night before. I will remember those sort of things.
Yeah, and I guess it just doesn't jump out at me.
No.
I mean, you would think,
I know.
Being type 1 diabetic, and I've seen, as you know, Jodi, doctors, I mean, I multiple appointments throughout the year for various reasons, just all preventative stuff. I'm used to, going through all these routines, but I'm glad that I remembered this when it was last minute. It hit me. It's like, you're getting on the treadmill. I wonder how far you'll go this time. Oh, you're probably going to want to wear tennis shoes for
on.
this. All right, exactly. And shorts. And yeah.
Did you happen to, this morning in the shower, shave any of the places where this stuff will go on your hairy chestness?
Oh, no.
Because that's always
I forgot
once they
that.
rip that off,
Oh,
yeah, well, they're good at that.
you need to be, I
I'll
know
tell you
they're
that.
good at it,
The
but you're
problem
hairy.
is, I know, but I don't know. Somebody who does that for a living knows exactly where every single one of those is supposed to go.
Correct.
And I think it's about 8 or 10 of them. I don't know that. I would have to shave my whole chest.
well,
And I don't want to do that.
Okay.
So, but anyway, but they'll do
not
what
with
they-
your shirt that far open.
and the chains.
Yes.
No,
Well, that's just something you have to deal with.
I'm used to that.
Yeah.
And actually, we make that a running joke. And it's not the first time that any, nurse or tech has ever seen that. They rip fast.
Yeah.
Sometimes it hurts, sometimes it doesn't. Not a big deal. I'm used to it. So
Being hairy.
When the doctor comes back and tells you everything looks great, Mr. Murphy, do you accept that or do you say, yeah, but?
No, if it shows up fine with that, then I'll take his word on that. The only time that I've ever had to have other tests beyond the echocardiogram is what they call it. Yeah, I think that's what they call it. Because what happens is you run on the treadmill and it speeds up and the incline continues to go up and you go as long as you can. That's all they would like for you to go 7 minutes to be able to get a reading.
A read.
And, most people, the average person, well, especially if you don't do a lot of exercise, 7 minutes is about all that you're going to get to before you're huffing and puffing and your heart hits, I think it's 140 beats a minute that they want.
It's longer than it sounds like if you're certainly
Right.
not in shape. Like
Right.
it's longer than it sounds.
And so as the incline goes up and all that, I mean, I do try to go as far as I can until I actually have to hop off the treadmill. And they want you to go straight from the treadmill to the table where they then do what looks like an ultrasound.
Mm-hmm.
And then they're taking other measurements also, I guess, at the same time. So you have multiple things. They're looking at how the valves are working, and they're taking whatever the electronic readings are at that same moment. So it's more thorough. And if it shows anything that's abnormal, which one of the first ones I did, then they moved me to, at that time, what they called a nuclear test, which is not
Nuclear?
not right. We're not talking about international stuff here. We're talking about, the actual, it's kind of like an MRI that would look really closely at veins and valves. But at that time, that was inconclusive too. So the final part of that is then you do what they call a heart cath, where they actually they put you under and they need to go in and see how things look, which is the most thorough of all of them.
It is.
But they don't like to do that if they don't have to because it's a little invasive.
Isn't that the one where they snake it up through your thigh or something?
Well, they'll start with the artery
start
in your
trying to do the
wrist if they
arm.
can.
Okay.
They prefer that because it's actually closer. But if they can't get that and they couldn't get that with me, then yes, they go, And so.
My Uncle Terry's had many of those.
Yeah. So.
Your sister had one.
My sister did, yeah. My sister had a very rare, because she's young, and she had a very rare aortic kind of a tear or something that was
It was a very big scare in the
right,
family.
yeah. So, yeah, I mean, again, another reason to have this stuff checked out when there are other things in the family. Because
In the family.
she's perfectly healthy.
Mhm.
And, but I'm sure they have new and, more detailed ways. I think there was some other scan they were supposed to be doing that would be a really strong alternative to the heart cath so that they don't have to go in and, be that, invasive with it. I think the problem with that, as I understand it, because I'm not a doctor, is sometimes calcification on the outside of the arteries blocks the ability to see inside of them. So the only way to see inside of them is actually to
That
go inside
cath.
of them. Yeah. But
That's a
but
very
that's-
good explanation.
right, but that's sort of that's like the stepping stone. The EKG they do in the office, if you've never had an issue and it looks great, they're probably not going to advance you to anything else. If you still think you're having problems or you have a shortness of breath issue or something that is of concern, then they'll move you to the treadmill and then, so on. So, again, I'm not obligated to do this and nobody's forcing me to do it, but it's been 2 years. I want to get it. I've got the right clothing this time.
Excited
so
for you.
I'll be hopping on the treadmill and I'll let you know how it goes.
Missed any part of the show? Get it all on the Murphy, Sam, and Jodi podcast.